What's that sound? It's For Amusement Only, the EM and Bingo Pinball Podcast. Welcome back to For Amusement Only. This is Nick Baldridge. Tonight I thought I'd talk about another game which is probably more prevalent than the Twist, but it uses a similar idea. It's just the obvious precursor. This is 1953's Bally Yacht Club. Now, Yacht Club had the typical bingo gameplay that we're all used to by now, right? 3, 4, or 5 in a row wins. But the unique hook for Yacht Club, and keep in mind that this is before Magic Squares. This is around the time of Magic Lines, which allow you to move one position up or down. But it's well before Magic Screens or 1962's The Twist. This game has something called overlapping cards. And honestly, it looks just about as confusing as it sounds. There are 2 yellow lines which are vertical and come down and surround a 5x5 grid of numbers on the back glass. Now the full grid is actually 9x5. And this feature allows you to move those lines, those yellow vertical lines, to surround a single 5x5 area. By default, it's highlighting the 2nd through the 6th column. And as you earn the feature, you're able to move left and right more and more. So when you first earn the feature, you can move it 1 position. Then you can move it 3 positions, and then you can move it all 4 positions extra. Now, unlike in Bally's The Twist, this does operate like a Sudoku puzzle in that you can only use each number 1 time. It just rearranges the order of the numbers. So let's take the farthest left column as shown, by default. So remember that the farthest left column is actually part of the feature that you have to earn. It's the 2nd column that's your default first column, if that makes sense. And it contains the numbers 1, 19, 5, 22, and 13 going vertically. Now, if you move the yellow lines, which contain the 5x5 grid, over to the right 1 position, it would drop off that 1, 19, 5, 22, and 13. So those numbers have to reappear on the other side. And it does this in a different order. The top spot is 19, then 13, then 1, and 5, and 22. And so in this way, there is less scoring potential than on, say, the Twist, where numbers can be repeated in the back box, but you're also not running into a situation where a number isn't present. So all 25 numbers on the playfield are always present at all times, which is kind of cool. Now, aside from this, the game has super lines. Now, you've heard me talk about 6-card machines quite a bit. You've heard Vic Camp talk about 6-card machines quite a bit. And what makes Superline special is that 3 in the Superline will score as 4, and 4 in the Superline will score as 5. Now, the Superlines are the 2nd row of numbers and the 4th row of numbers. You have to earn that feature, and again, by now, as you know, If I say you have to earn it, that means that you have to pay for it. So you push the red button, and the machine will search and flash, and potentially it will give you one of those features. It is not enabled by default. Also, this game has single deck scoring, which means there's a single set of odds for 3 in a row, 4 in a row, and 5 in a row. Beyond that, it's got an extra ball feature. You can get up to 3 extra balls. And I like the artwork for the extra balls. There's teaser arrows, which appear directly above first, second, and third extra ball. And it works that way on the United Caravan that I just picked up. The teaser arrows appear just above the indication that you've earned the extra ball. I kind of like that. It makes you feel like you're progressing towards it a bit faster than the typical Bally method. But in reality, you're probably progressing much slower because the unit has to step up that many more times. So, Yacht Club has a maximum 5 in a line payout of 300 replays, which is not unusual for this time. Again, this is 1953, so this is firmly in the wood rail era. Now, to move left and right, instead of the typical left and right buttons that Bally would introduce later in the 50s, it used a selector dial. Similar to the way that you can select a spotted number on certain older machines. This selector dial lets you move the yellow lines, the vertical yellow lines, which encompass the 5x5 grid that you want to play for. Now, this is before the era of extended time trees. So it appears, and there's no indication on the back glass of this, it must be on the instruction card. It is. You can select until your 4th ball is shot, so that's equivalent to the before 4th feature on any game with an extended time tree. That's not unusual for this time period either. It looks like a lot of fun, and honestly, I know I say this about every single game, but I'd love to play one. I think the way that Bally did this made a lot of sense financially. So it would be an awful lot less expensive to put in a mechanism to move what's essentially a transparency back and forth in front of a bingo card rather than have an entire rotating mechanism that's made out of metal driven by a chain and needing a large additional motor. It's not as flashy, certainly, but it's a similar concept. So I kind of like this. Now, it was the only game that they used this feature on, and I kind of understand that too. For a player, I would imagine it would be a little confusing if you first stepped up to it. A Magic screen game, if you completely ignore the screen, it's pretty straightforward. On Yacht Club, you can't ignore that feature because the entire 9-column card is visible at all times. The only one you're playing for is second from the left until 6th. But by default, you're seeing the whole thing. So I just feel like that would be kind of tricky for a new bingo player to step up to without reading the instruction card, of course. But who does that? I certainly don't. That's just there to take up space, right? Well, I would love to play one of these one day. I think I might know a collector that has one, so if I ever make the journey, I'll get to play one. Well, that's all for tonight. Thank you very much for joining me. My name again is Nick Baldridge. You can reach me at foramusementonlypodcast@gmail.com, or you can call me on the Bingos line. That's 724-BINGOS-1, 724-246-4671. You can listen to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Pocket Casts, via RSS, on Facebook, on Twitter at Bingo Podcast. You can follow me on Instagram at nbaldridge, or you can listen to us on our website, which is foramusementonly.libsyn.com. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.